Staying with the public sector, do you think that you have got your head around the problem at this stage? Is it going to be an ongoing problem? What claims do you have against, firstly, the Gautrain?
Look, it's not going to go away. And I think that where we are on Gautrain, this is not only a public sector project, it's also a public-private partnership. So we have private sector involvement in the project through the third-party lenders who've invested significant sums of money. So PPPs have a very different characteristic then to both either true public sector contracts or true private sector contracts. So we work within a public sector environment with all of these so-called constraints, but we also have the imperatives around economic well-being that the private sector lenders bring into play. I think that in the fulfillment of this project, there's been an incredible amount of work done to deliver a really, really high-tech project into the South African environment. And we're on track to deliver phase one by the Soccer World Cup. And there's an enormous amount of work going in to overcome some of the difficulties we'd experienced to get the second phase of the project through to Pretoria and Hatfield completed on schedule or just slightly behind schedule. Now there are many, many issues that have arisen. I mean, this is a project that stretches over 85 kilometers of land. There are all types of issues that have arisen through the procurement of that land. It's got high levels of complexity. And it's the issues now around, in fact, if there is a consequence of some level of complexity, where does that consequence lie? Does it lie with the contractor or does it lie with the client in the context of a public-private partnership?
Well, it sounds as though it's a debate that's going to rage for a long time.
I think at one stage it might have been thought that this would be the case, but there is a lot of goodwill between the parties. I mean, I personally have taken a significant interest in ensuring that this doesn't end up in a war that goes on for a number of years. And so my engagement, I'm the type of person, I don't like going to war. And if I need to, I will. But if we can find a way to resolve issues by just a higher level of debate, let's put it that way, we know that the facts have got to support the argument. And I'm pretty confident that where we're going at the moment, we'll finish the project technically very successfully, and we will ultimately get all the commercial issues resolved.
In the meantime, though, you're going to be cautious on the revenue recognition line.
We have to be simply because of the levels of unknown and uncertainty. And I think we've all learned a lot in this process. I mean, this is one of the largest PPPs in the world, and certainly one of the largest projects South Africa's ever done. And we've all been through a steep learning curve. The question is, what is the cost of that learning, and how do we see it as an investment in the future?
And Medupi, what is the situation there? Is it as extreme as the Gautrain?
Medupi's got different characteristics, but in many respects the circumstances are the same. South Africa has embarked on a significant capital investment program following a period of severe decline in our industry. So it's not only we who've struggled with the ability to provide the appropriate levels of skills to do these world-class projects, but our clients have also suffered in that particular context. Also, our environment has changed fundamentally. So the types of projects we did in the 1960s and 70s were in a completely different legislative or socio-economic regime. And the numbers of laws which have been introduced, we've enhanced the environmental legislative framework, for instance, has now brought in a measure of control into environment which in many developing world countries you don't see. And it's how each of the parties has been able to find their way through this that's resulted in perhaps the less than perfect start to some of these contracts. And when a contract doesn't start in a perfect way, then it's very difficult to put it back onto track at some later stage.
But how big from a revenue recognition element is Medupi for you?
Oh, Medupi is very, very big for us. It represents a significant part of our order book. I think our total order book for Marion Roberts out of the power program is somewhere between 15 and 20 billion rand. And that will grow over the next couple of years. So it is quite
And your order
significant.
book's at 44 billion rand or thereabouts.
Yes, well, some of that order book, of course, we've already spent. So I'm talking about originally. So I think Medupi and Kusile they are large projects. They are on large sites, but they're relatively concentrated. Whereas Gautrain was spread over an extended geographic space, and many third parties. Like we had 5 or 6 different municipalities to deal with. We got, the Rand Water Board, AXA, SARCC, or PRAS as it now is.
So if I read between the lines, there's a greater sense of control over Medupi and Kusile.
Yes. And the technology is, although the technology is advanced first world technology, power stations have been built before. So there's a lot of experience we can draw on around power station construction, but very little that we can draw on in the context of a transport system construction engineering.
Brian, for the last couple of years that I've been interviewing you on the news desk, there has been concern around sustainability of the order book beyond 2010. And I'm sure you are so tired of being asked that question. But 2010 is upon us now. Where are we going from here? Because it still is, when I'm talking to the fund managers out there about the investment case behind construction stocks, and I'm sorry to group you all in one lump sum here, but it is, where is the sustainability beyond 2010?
Well, I think we've got to look at two issues here. That there's no doubt that the current marketplace has been severely impacted by the global economic crisis. And South Africa went into it later, but is struggling to get out of it. So we are seeing growth in 12 to 18 months' time. I think had it not been for the global economic crisis, the fixed capital formation market in South Africa would have continued to grow. Behind that, of course, there's a macroeconomic issue, and that is that the demand for infrastructure in the world, particularly in the developing world, is very high. And to meet the aspirations of society, and particularly the youth in society, there has to be significant investment in the infrastructure which enables economic growth. So I'm not in any way concerned about the long-term profile of the construction industry. We came out of a 25-year decline between 1977 and 2002. The rest of the world had a slightly shorter decline, probably 12 years. But we were in a coordinated upturn. South Africa, we're seeing a slow recovery, but our markets in the international environment have recovered very, very strongly.